Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We need a, have you got a, is there a Phillips head screwdriver there? By any chance? No. Who's got their Swiss Army knife on them? Nobody. This just needs a, it's not the mic, this just needs to be tightened up because it keeps on. Okay. So we're reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, 10th canto, the Summum Bonum, chapter 8, Lord Krishna shows the universal form within his mouth. Text number 49. Is that right? 47. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that might be right actually. That's where I got to last night. I was reading ahead because this is interesting section. Pittaro nanvavindetam Krishno darar pakehitam Gayantyadhyapikavayo Yalokas malapaham Pittaro nanvivenditam Krishno darabakehitam Gayantyadhyapikavayo Yaloka samalapaham Pittaro nanvivenditam Krishno dararbakehitam Gayantyadhyapikavayo Yaloka samalapaham Pittaro nanvivenditam Krishna dararpakehitam Gayantyadhyapikavayo Yaloka samalapaham Pittaro nanvavindetam Krishna dararpakehitam Gayantyadhyapikavayo Yaloka samalapaham. Pittaro, the actual father and mother of Krishna. Not anvavinditam, enjoyed. Krishna, of Krishna. Udara, magnanimous. Arbhakta ehitam, the childhood pastimes he performed. Gayanti, are glorifying. Adya api, even today, Kavaya, great, great sages and saintly persons, Yat, which is Loka Samala Appaham, by hearing of which the contamination of the whole material world is vanquished. Although Krishna was so pleased with Vasudeva and Devaki that he descended as their son, they could not enjoy Krishna's magnanimous childhood pastimes, which are so great that simply chanting about them vanquishes the contamination of the material world. Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, however, enjoyed these pastimes fully, and therefore their position is always better than that of Vasudeva and Devaki. Purport. Krishna actually took birth from the womb of Devaki, but just after his birth, he was transferred to the home of Mother Yashoda. Devaki could not even have Krishna suck her breast. Therefore, Parikshit Maharaj was astonished. How had Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj become so fortunate that they enjoyed the complete childhood pastimes of Krishna, which are still glorified by saintly persons? What had they done in the past by which they were elevated to such an exalted position? Om Magyana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmaye Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Svapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinatarinam. Parikshit Maharaj was astonished, astounded. It's an interesting comparison, and an interesting question. In hearing the pastimes of Krishna's appearance, Maharaj Parikshit is struck by the good fortune of Nanda and Yashoda. Fair enough. Because Vasudeva and Devaki are the actual parents of Krishna, which is interesting in and of itself, because Krishna is unborn, right? He's described as the unborn, yet he takes birth in order to facilitate his pastimes, his activities. He appears millennium after millennium. Right? Sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam vinasaya chaduskritam. He appears to protect, to deliver his devotees, to protect the devotees. to kill the demons and to establish religious principles, dharma, samstapakaya. So Krishna has a purpose. And in order to fulfill his purposes, his devotees appear beforehand and during and even after his pastimes to facilitate his purpose, to facilitate his protecting the devotees, killing the demons, establishing religious principles. Oh, excuse me. Oh. So, Maharaj Parikshit is deeply absorbed, always deeply absorbed. Maharaj Parikshit was threatened by the Brahmastra, instigated by what's his name? Ashvatthama. Yes, Ashvatthama. And so he felt the presence of the Lord, saw the Lord in the womb, who was protected him, effectively. So Maharaj Parikshit was blessed and had the darshan of the Lord before he even left the womb. Right? So Maharaj Parikshit was deeply absorbed in that manmana bhava mad bhakto, right? Remembering Krishna, thinking of Krishna all the time, and always looking for him. He wanted that darshan again. He couldn't forget it. This is, how many of us remember what happened in the womb? Huh? Anybody remember? If you remember what took place in the womb, you'd remember who you were in your previous life. Right? Interesting, isn't it? We've lived through many births. But that process of leaving the body, the previous body, and then entering into the womb of our mothers, it makes us forget. Right? And then it takes, 25 years to remember everything. Then we come out and perform all material activities. We've forgotten who we were in our previous lifetime completely. Well, it's interesting. Prabhupada says if one becomes Krishna conscious, then one can know one's past, one's present, and one's future. Where you've come from and where you're going. We can be relieved of that ignorance by the practice of devotional service. We can reawaken our true identity. So Maharaj Parikshit keenly hearing all of these pastimes, and this is right from the beginning of the Bhagavatam, which he heard in 7 days, by the way, which is pretty amazing. It's in the time that I've spent in the temple, it's nearly 3 times through the Bhagavatam. Where this is and in the first time round, we didn't read the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. the 10th canto, Prabhupada explains how the Bhagavatam is the embodiment of Krishna. And the first and second cantos are the lotus feet. So we start from the beginning. Right? And then when we come to the 10th canto, this is the smiling face of Krishna. But it's interesting, Prabhupada says that we shouldn't jump to the 10th canto without understanding the basics of all of the other cantos. And especially the smile, Krishna's smile is the Rasa Leela. Have you heard that? Or you just heard it? Yeah. And so there's 5 verses in the 10th canto of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Not 5 verses. Oh yeah, 5 chapters, sorry. 5 chapters that concentrate on on the Rasa Leela, and which highlight the character, the qualities, the devotion, the bhakti, if you like, of the gopis, of Srimati Radharani specifically. And so one is recommended to, one is recommended to study a number of sequences, but one is recommended to study Bhagavad Gita, basics, Bhagavad Gita first. Huh? What was the first book that Prabhupada translated? Easy Journey to... Well, it wasn't really a translation, it was just a little book. But Bhagavad Gita, effectively. And interesting, Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada wrote the Bhagavad Gita, it was stolen. So he wrote it again. So, have you ever written something and then, the word processor didn't save it? Ever had that experience? Wrote a long letter to somebody, and then you came back and it was gone. Poof. If it hasn't happened, it will at some point. But then you write it again, and the second version is usually better than the first. Well, you would hope so. So, we didn't read that. We didn't feel ourselves qualified enough to read the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam the first time through. And I think, to be honest, it wasn't translated yet either. It was up to the Brahma Vimohan Leela, because that's where Prabhupada finished the Bhagavatam. Or that's as far as his translation went. And of course, prior to that, Prabhupada had given us the Krishna book. Right? Why? Because the 10th canto of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, in many respects, is the most important section of the Bhagavatam. Right? And very often is glorified for its potency to purify. Right? Purify the consciousness. And so we see here in this translation, we see at the end of this, the last line of this verse, Yalloka samalapaham. Apaham means destroys or vanquishes. And what vanquishes? and Yaloka Samalapaham destroys all of the contamination of the whole material world. Pretty amazing when you think about it. The potency of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, but especially 10th canto, and especially these descriptions of Krishna's pastimes as a child. We've got the Damodarashtakam, or the tying up of Krishna is coming just around the corner. Highlights coming up, right? So, Loka Shamala Apaham. What? Gayanti Adyapi Kavayo. So, those who glorify, or those who recite the kavis, right? The learned, saintly, poetic, I guess, the kavi, Prabhupada explains, a kavi is a very learned and saintly person who is expert at glorifying Krishna. Right? And the means for glorifying Krishna is the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Really interesting. Of course, the practice of bhakti, our practice of bhakti is multifaceted. Chanting Hare Krishna is purifying. Worshipping the deities is purifying. Hearing the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is purifying. But sufficient in itself to liberate us. So many activities we're encouraged to perform, each one of them potent enough to liberate us. So if you combine all of that together, we're like on a rocket ship going back to the spiritual world. And it's simultaneously simple, easy, and complicated, right? And in fact, our devotional practice is something that takes place from birth, or for Maharaj Parikshit, even before birth, right? But at birth, all the way until we move on to the next pastimes, the next activities, the next body, effectively. So, Maharaj Parikshit is questioning, and after observing that Devaki and Vasudeva are exalted personalities because they were the mother and father of Krishna. But as soon as he was born, he was taken away. So that's fortunate, but unfortunate, right? Fortunate, but unfortunate. To give birth to a child, but then to have them removed at birth is, that happens to people, that's considered a tragedy, right? When you think about it. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because Maharaj Parikshit has that discernment, or that ability to discriminate, or to compare, contrast and compare. Right? Did you do reading comprehension at school? Did you do that, Sibya? You already done it. Right? Comprehension. And that's a kind of reflection. We read something, then we analyse it to work out what it means. What are the subtleties of the information that's been given? What are the details? So he's comparing Vasudeva and Devaki, very elevated and so pious that they were the mother and father of Krishna, but then and it's interesting here, Prabhupada says in the purport, Devaki could not even have Krishna suck her breast. Well, but I read later on, and I read Jiva Goswami says once. Once. So, what misfortune? What separation? Well, it's interesting though, because in the comparison, there's a distinction, a very clear distinction between Nanda and Yashoda. Actually, between Nanda and Yashoda, of the two, Yashoda is considered to be more fortunate, right? Had a more intimate relationship with Krishna. Because sometimes Nanda Maharaj would go away, but Yashoda was with Krishna all the time, right? And could feed him, which is considered the most auspicious, right? So intimately connected. And especially we see in this pastime, Yashoda couldn't see Krishna as the Supreme Person. Even when she saw Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, her prema is described, prema maya. So we were discussing the other day, 3 types of maya. Maha Maya, Yoga Maya, and then it's described by Vishwanath Chakravarti and others, Prema Maya, where the Prema Maya overcomes the Yoga Maya, and even though she saw Krishna as the supreme, as the universal form within his mouth, right? She saw everything, even herself. The Prema overpowered that observation of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and she could only see him as her son. Right? Whereas Vasudeva and Devaki, even though greatly fortunate to have Krishna as their son, observed him as Vishnu, right? Because Krishna appeared as Vishnu to reveal his supreme person. Interesting, isn't it, that Krishna appears and hides himself. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he reciprocates with the affection and the love of his devotees, and so he doesn't reveal that he's God. Pretty far out when you think about it. No, but that takes lifetimes to understand. Right? Even it mentioned before, there's the study of the Vedas, the study of the Upanishads, there's the study of the Puranas, right? And there are those who study the Vedas but only come to the Karmakanda portion, and then that's their life, is to worship Lord Vishnu indirectly through the performance of sacrifices and yajnas, or through the performance of all of the rules and regulations of the scripture. And of course, that's surprising for Maharaj Parikshit, because Mother Yashoda didn't go through all of this study of the Shastra and Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. In fact, the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is in many respects about her, at least in the conclusion, and the description of her superlative devotional service. But she's so spiritually elevated, that she has the most intimate relationship with Krishna. So this actually it's mentioned. It's interesting if you look at Jiva Goswami's what's the title of the Sandarbha that deals with the Bhagavatam? Krama, is it? Or Krishna? Bhagavat. Commentary. Yeah, anyway, it's very interesting. If you look at his Bhagavatam commentary, and there's two, right? But if you look at his, and you know, I just mentioned this because I was looking at it last night, because I was giving class this morning. But at this verse, his commentary stops. This is his Bhagavatam commentary, the whole Bhagavatam commentary. He has a book which is just the commentary on the 10th canto. Right? That's a separate commentary. Jiva Goswami was a great scholar. He was just a really, and that's why he became the leader of the what was it? The Vishva Raja, Vishva Vaishnava Raja Sabha. The kind of official Hare Krishna movement in those days. But interestingly, with no constitution. Didn't have a constitution like ISKCON. That's another story. But his Bhagavatam commentary stops and then starts at the beginning of the 9th chapter. And in the commentary, and I can't remember who, maybe Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions, these verses from here up to 21 of the next chapter is glorification of Mother Yasoda. Right? And of course, Parikshit's asking now, what did they do? What did Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda do to be so fortunate that they were the mother and father of Krishna and experienced all of the intimacy and closeness to Krishna that Vasudeva and Devaki couldn't. Right? Interesting. What did they do? What makes them special? What makes them special? So this is Parikshit Maharaj's question. Right? What makes them so special? And is the lead into the next section of the Bhagavatam. Right? How Nanda and Yashoda. But it's interesting because Nanda and Yashoda are eternally Krishna's mum and dad in his Brajalila. But this is a bit of a conundrum in one sense, a paradox. The next section of the Bhagavatam describes how they became eternally Nanda and Yashoda. This is something to meditate on. One of those bewildering things that we meditate on, which apparently is contradictory. How do you become something when you're already something and always something? Bhagavatam will explain it. Bhagavatam explains it. Bhagavatam explains how Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and always so, but how he appears, Sambhavami Yuge Yuge, millennium after millennium, in order to protect the devotees, to destroy the demons and establish religious principles. which is the activities of the kavis, of the kavayo. Great sages and saintly persons mentioned in this verse, right? And it's described here also that Krishna's pastimes, Krishna udara arbaka ihitam, the magnanimous, these early pastimes of the Bhagavatam are considered, and as is mentioned in the final line of the verse, loka shamala apaham. By hearing these, why they're magnanimous is because they destroy all of the contamination. Let's look up Shamala. See what it is. Shamala. All inauspicious qualities. Right? All inauspicious qualities. And that's from 3rd canto, 15th chapter, 17th verse. That word also appears. Shamalam. So, So, yeah. So this is the beginning of the next section of the Bhagavatam, which describes the glories of Nanda and Yashoda. And let's just keep going. Oh, there it is. Yep. Yeah. So Vasudeva and Devaki could not enjoy the Krishna's childhood pastimes. Which are so great that simply chanting about them destroys all material inauspiciousness. So pretty. And here's the interesting thing: we have got the good fortune of being able to absorb ourselves in these pastimes. I remember when must have been, I don't know, 30 years ago, no, longer, 40 years ago, I was hearing the pastimes of Krishna in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, and I didn't understand them at all. I remember at Jamastami, we used to read the Krishna book in the what's now the dining room. Used to be the reception. That used to be the reception. And we'd read, and I thought it was the most. It was almost the greatest torture of the year. Was to sit and read the pastimes, the Krishna book, basically. The 10th canto of the Bhagavatam hadn't been printed yet, hadn't been published. But that would have been torturous too, because it's just a very young devotee. And we were fasting, I was probably hungry. And as soon as the Krishna book opened up, fell asleep. Right? I might have heard something. And of course, keep in mind, an impersonalist headset still. So difficult. I read about Krishna's a boy and a baby, and too much, too much information that was overload for the brain, right? But after many years of hearing, eventually, Kali Kalmasha Napanam. Chanting Hare Krishna purifies the heart. Hearing the Bhagavatam regularly purifies the heart. But we have to start from the beginning. And what's the beginning? Bhagavad Gita. Nectar of instruction. Nectar of devotion. Right at the beginning. And then gradually work our way through the Bhagavatam to the 10th canto. And that's a development of understanding, of a development of rasa, actually, when you think about it. And we come to the, because the idea is that eventually we come to the same platform as Nanda and Yashoda in terms of our meditation on serving Krishna. And all of our sadhana is designed to bring us to that point of depth of understanding, depth of realization, purification, so that our mood of service is following in the footsteps of the residents of Vrindavan. And that's why these pastimes are, very, very appreciated by the kavis, by the learned persons. And of course, this is a lifetime effort when you think about it. And we see it actually in this, what's to be described in Nanda and Yashoda, the amount of austerity that they performed to be eligible. And of course, for us to be eligible, not so much, a lifetime. Like Prabhupada says, give up this life and dedicate it to Krishna, at least give it one crack, right? Had so many births, wasted time. Gosh, wasted enough time in this lifetime. And this is supposedly a serious devotee, and I wasted so much time to get serious, right? But it's very interesting, because this process imperceptibly elevates us, even if we're not very elevated, by associating with the devotees. And of course, regularly hearing the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, we become fortunate, greatly fortunate, right? So Maharaj Parikshit is asking, how come Nanda and Yashoda are so fortunate that they got the opportunity to participate in, to observe, to be absorbed in Krishna's intimate Leela as a child, and Vasudeva and Devaki were the real, one says real, in brackets real, mother and father. The question is, who's the real mother and father? And so that's why Maharaj Parikshit is asking. They've got the good fortune of always having, especially Yashoda. And even though Prabhupada says they wasn't able to breastfeed Krishna, like Devaki, it's mentioned once. She fed Krishna once, but then gone. Interesting. So does anybody have any comments or questions? Sibya, you had your hand up first. You're the senior.
Hare Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the nice class. Prabhu, you mentioned that even if we just perfect one limb of bhakti, like reading Śrīmad Bhāgavatam.
I didn't say that, but it's true. Yep.
Then we can go back home, back to Godhead. But when, as practicing devotees, we are always encouraged to worship the deities, clean the temple, serve the Vaishnavas, chant attentively.
Yes.
So if we can just perfect one limb and go back home, back to Godhead, why are we constantly encouraged to do the many other services also?
Because there's 24 hours in a day. And you're not going to be able to sit still and just do one thing. Or even if you weren't sitting still, do one thing all the time. We get to 16 rounds and we go, phew. And even though we might like to, we can't eat prasadam all day long. So, variety. You know, it said, variety is the mother of enjoyment. Right? And we're also personalities, and personalities are not one. Okay, there are persons who are exemplars, but generally we need a variety of engagement. Otherwise, we get bored. You know, Haridas Thakur chanted 170 something. You know, 300. Was it 300,000, 3 lakhs of names every day, right? That's hours of japa. So there are personalities who are exemplars, but they're not to be. And this is interesting. We are not to imitate. We are meant to follow, right? And so, for us, the following is that engagement in devotional service as a well-rounded, balanced individual, right? It's why we encourage you to go to school, at least at your stage, you know, in your stage of life. We don't. It's very interesting. I was reading the other day. Closeness to Krishna means, first of all, qualities. The qualities. First quality is humility. Right? Humility. The sign of an advanced devotee isn't pride. Oh, I'm such an advanced devotee. Right? The real quality of a devotee is humility. And then with that humility comes attachment to service to Krishna. Right? And so, while it's true we can be perfect by applying one of the 9 processes of devotional service, and there are personalities who exemplify that, for the majority of us, it's an engagement in all of those activities, so we have a balanced life, right? And we set an example for others that can be followed. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's chant your rounds, worship the deities, cook an offering, so many things, right? And we have a roster out there if you want to get on the roster. That's highly advanced, very advanced. Ashley.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the class. In regards to pastimes, hearing pastimes vanquishing our material contamination, does the listener need a certain qualification for that vanquishing to happen, or can it happen to anyone regardless of their advancement, desire, purification?
It's the advantage of associating with devotees. So all we have to do is associate with the devotees, and then automatically the morning program will engage us in hearing the Bhagavatam. Some days you may be asleep, but still there's benefit. And some days you'll be more attentive than others. And so it's a process. But yes, attentiveness is required for the full maximum. A very interesting example is Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj heard the Bhagavatam in the womb of his mother. But his mother was asleep. She wasn't as advanced as her son. Right? But she must have got some, obviously she's a very pious personality, but he heard within the womb of his mother and got the benefit. Very elevated personality. So, so much so that he was preaching, in primary school. Much to the frustration of his teachers and his father, for that matter. His father was so irritated by the fact that his son was such an exalted devotee, he wanted to kill him. But couldn't, because he was protected by Krishna at every step, pretty much. So, qualification, that's a good question, and attentiveness is important. But even if you're not fully attentive all of the time, but continue the practice of hearing the Bhagavatam, you're fortunate. Because one day you'll be awake more than another. And you'll actually hear something. Whoa, okay. What do you think?
Yes, I think it requires faith also.
What's that?
Faith.
Faith. Even if you don't have faith, it'll work. Huh? Even if you don't have faith, the Bhagavatam's so powerful. But that's good. See, in the beginning is faith. Right? In the beginning is faith, and then what comes after faith?
Sadhu Sangha.
Yes. Adal Shraddha Sadhu Sangha. Yeah. I remember, the devotees were all very attractive, all attractive. But then I used to look at them and I think, I won't say what I thought. These guys are fanatics. But always hearing, always chanting, always serving. Right? Even some of the devotees that preached to me, initially, they weren't great sadhakas, but they were preaching at least. and I got the benefit. Got some benefit, right? So that association is super powerful. If you're attracted to the association of the devotees, over time and that will be because of Shraddha, faith. You have some faith in the process, in the chanting of Hare Krishna, in the philosophy, in the practice. By that association, the faith will be amplified, right? Will grow. And in fact, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj describes how Lord Chaitanya explains that the process of devotional service is hearing and chanting. It's like the watering of the Bhakti Lata Beej, hearing and chanting, and that's best done in the association of devotees. And why the example of a garden is given. And what's the first thing you do? You build a fence, right? And keep in the association of the devotees. Don't associate with materialistic persons. Yep. So faith must already be. If you're in a Bhagavatam class, some faith has to be there already, even if you don't know it, and even if you're asleep. Okay, Jeev Jago, let's have breakfast. Hare Krishna. Kantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki jai, Hare Krishna.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanshan Shri Rupam Chakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Swam Sajivam Shadaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Dev Vrindavan Lalita Shri Vishakhanitanscha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna,